enjoying it. Well, I'm only gonna finish my reread. And you know what? It's really fun. It's a really fun, entertaining book. Not a 5-star like I originally thought. I think I'm gonna lower it to a 4, which is still awesome. I just forgot like how Bryce ends up becoming literally the most important, the most special, the most powerful person by the end of this book. Like, she's the one. Why did I forget that? That's huge. Like, that's a huge, huge thing. And I forgot that she is actually the whole. Danica had like crumbled it up, got it tattooed onto Bryce. Through love, all is possible, which is like the most cliche thing I've heard in the whole freaking world. But that was a big revelation, and I knew there was a plot twist coming. But like, there were so many different plot twists.
That's really short.
That I was like, oh god. Like, when I left you, there was still so much to learn. So one of the plot twists that I kind of vaguely remember was when they're at the dock, and it turns out that Hunt knew about Danica and like the substance that she had used beforehand, like the synth. And I think that was the twist I kind of remember, because he had some kind of dog thing. But that's not even like really a big twist or anything. It creates the most mundane conflict ever, because then Bryce wouldn't trust Hunt and kind of like left him. Hunt moved from being under Micah and, you know, being Micah's kind of slave to being Sandriel's. But it created like the briefest of conflicts between Bryce and Hunt, because he'd kept it from her. The way that she ends up like trying to give her life for him right after that, when she finds out that Hunt is now Sandriel's pet. The way that Bryce wants to give up the rest of her life and give all of these gold coins to Sandriel when she like finds out about the whole Hunt thing. I'm like, you literally hated his guts like 5 seconds ago.
This might be too far away.
He kept so much from you, and now she's willing to throw everything away. And it was like such a brief moment in time where we had that misunderstanding, miscommunication kind of conflict.
Is it because it's too close to the box?
That was just a bit too quick for my liking. But I think the thing that floored me the most was the fact that Danica was the one who killed her entire pack and then herself. And you know, like how, oh my god, like trying to visualize what she did, or like any person, any human who has this synth thing, is absolutely disgusting. It makes me feel physically sick what they do. And I totally forgotten that it was Danica who'd had that. But it was also Micah who had like arranged the whole thing. He was the cause behind Danica's death. And I was like, I've forgotten everything. You know, really exciting plot twists and revelations.
I don't think I'll be able to hold my phone in.
No regulations to actually then get the reveals and things. It was so much fun. It really was. Like, as much as I don't love a whole lot of things that happened with like Bryce in terms of like how important and chosen one she feels, like she feels very Vera from Akatar. Like, I'm finding it very hard to differentiate between the two of them. And even Selena, I think her name was, in Throne of Glass. I've only read the first and last Throne of Glass books. I don't really know that series very well. But like, even just the little bit of Throne of Glass that I got, I feel through Bryce. She started off as someone who I felt stood out a little bit more, but as the book went on, she kind of blended in more with the other protagonists that Sarah J. Maas has written. You know who I actually really like? I like Fury. Like, we didn't get too much of her, but I like her. And I like the fact that she and Juniper, I think, are lovers. Yeah, I even put like a little heart next to it as well. Juniper and I have something that is none of your fucking business. I can no sooner stop talking to her than I could rip out my own fucking heart, okay? I really do like Fury, I do. I hope we get more of her in the next 2 books. And again, like, I have no clue going forward what happens next, because it'll be the first time I've read them. Is someone setting off fireworks? It's February 2nd. Why? Literally, that sounds like it's coming right outside the house. Yeah, I remember. You actually get blue balled like twice in this book. But I'm kind of glad, because, oh my god. Because when they realized that it wasn't the demon thing that came out through the portal that killed Danica and the pack, the moment they realize that it's humans infected with synth is when they see on a flash drive the kind of tearing apart of limbs and the fact that they're left as like pulp. I'm just going to talk to the fireworks because that's just fucking ridiculous. But yeah, they say all of this graphic, horrible, nasty stuff with all of the body parts and stuff. And then now finally Bryce knows what exactly killed Danica. Although she doesn't know it was Danica herself at this point, just the kind of cause of death. It's right during all of this when they start their first almost sex session. Tell me what you want, Quinlan. All of it. There was no doubt in her. None. Maybe they're celebrating the fact that I finished my reread of House of Earth and Blood. I wish I knew where I was coming from. Ooh, that's pretty. Oh, that's so pretty.
I wish I was as talented as, like, my brain thinks I am.
But yeah, they start ravaging each other.
If I was,
right
like, as
after
good,
all of this revelation, after seeing all of this dead body
if I was as
stuff,
good in my
just,
fucking head, like Super 10 I
she slid
am,
her hand down his front to his pants.
you hoes would be
the hard,
shaking.
considerable length straining against them. You know, like with Sarah
I
J.
just
Maas,
want a template off
of the sex
Pinterest,
scenes
and
can
I'm
be
just gonna
very
draw
honest.
that.
I do love.
I don't know why I thought I was like, oh,
when
I'll
I
just
first
draw
read
this. I'll be
I haven't
simple. Just
reread it,
boxes.
so who knows?
No.
But I'm kind of glad I got blue balled at this point because I'm just like, this is not the right
Where's my
time
eraser?
for this. Come on.
Can
And then
you
yeah,
erase
towards the
colored
end as
pencil?
well, we have another almost sex scene, and then Bryce's mother interrupts.
I've never
And at this
actually
point, I was like, you
drawn
know what? Good on you.
with colored
I
pencil
feel
like this.
we
At least
will
I've never
most likely
sketched.
get
I've
some
used
epic
colored
sex
pencils.
scene in the second book. If
I've
we're
never
going off the
sketched
trajectory of like
with
Akatar, Akamath, it's
colored
the second
pencils.
Akamath book that
I see-
has this.
I see it all the time people
So maybe we're
sketch. A lot
following
of
the same
like
formula
really good
with the
artists
rest
that I
of the
follow.
series. Yeah,
They
I liked
use
Sandriel's death. I liked Mika's death.
they use
All good.
they use
All good. It
colored
was
pencils,
exciting.
but
It was had
to like
loads
sketch,
and
or
loads
they
of
use colored.
surprises,
They
even
use
as a
color to sketch,
rereader.
and then they
So
go over
now I
like
get
a
to read
darker
House
or
of
shit.
Sky and Breath for the first time, and I have a confession to make.
Or they
I have already
go
read the last
use a
line of this
red
book.
marker
Not the last
to
line of the
color,
epilogue, sorry.
and then
The
they
last
go over
line
it
on
with a
page
darker color,
708.
and it really makes
I
it
have
pop
already
and
read
stuff.
that last line. And the
I
reason I
don't know, I
read
just
that
always
was
use
because
pencil
when
to
I went to
sketch.
Cornerstones,
I just think it's
and
easier.
this book came out,
The way it
my manager
smudges.
said, read the last line of
I'm
the
pretty.
book.
I'm a
And I
basic
was like,
bitch.
okay.
I'll admit.
I didn't want to get fired. I mean, I'm kidding. She wouldn't fire me. But at that point, I was like, you know, I'm not that bothered about reading it just yet. What could possibly go wrong just reading the last line of the book? So I read the last line of the book, and I don't know how I feel still to this day.
I mean,
And
Pinterest
think
is
it was
really a
2 years ago when
lifesaver
this
if you
came
think
out.
about it.
It kind of made me not want to read it, to be honest. It kind of put me off reading it, even more so than I already was, because I just didn't fancy
Yeah,
reading
I
it
don't know
at that
how
time.
they do it.
2 years later, I still haven't read it. Now I do. I really want to read it now. Rereading House of Earth and Blood has really made me excited
I
to
don't
read
know.
it, despite
The best form of flattery
lukewarm
is stealing,
reception
I
that this
guess.
one's received.
I guess it's not
care
stealing
about this
because everyone
whole
uses.
multiverse
People
thing,
use.
connecting to Throne of Glass and Akatar.
I wonder what the actual
I
benefits
don't
are
care.
from sketching
I
with the
would
colored
rather it
pencil
didn't do
versus
that, but,
just
you know,
gray
I guess that's
lead
what we're
pencil.
gonna have. But we'll see how I feel after I've read this book. I'm currently making a cup
I
of
actually
tea.
don't know what
I
this
am
is.
102 pages into
Number
House
2, yeah,
of Sky and Breath, and like, let me get this straight. So
Yeah, number 2.
we had a prologue.
Have y'all ever seen
that
a number
was
1 pencil?
A little bit too long, with someone called Sophie getting
No,
dropped
because
from
they're
the
harder
ocean.
to erase.
And she
Like, look
is
at,
the
I've made a
Thunderbird.
bunch of mistakes already, and it's not
She's a
erasing as well.
Thunderbird.
But I guess because it's like
Just
it's a
keep
pink
that in,
color,
'cause I think
so
it
it's gonna
might be
it's not gonna
important at
pop
some
against
point.
like
She
the
has
ink that I'm
mentioned,
gonna
I
end
think
up
the
using
River Queen is
eventually,
looking for her,
and
which
maybe
is
some pencil.
could be interesting. Also, Sophie's brother is missing, and that's who Sophie's trying to find. And if the River Queen finds,
That's a good idea, but that's
you
not
know
what I'm
I just
doing.
started this book. Literally, the first word.
I had this funny
Sophie. So we do
prompt,
get
writing
back
prompt
to
I
Bryce
came up
and
with.
Hunt and everyone. And it
I'm
just
gonna do
feels so
that.
like normal, which I guess is fine because I imagine shit is gonna hit the fan soon. But the only thing that's really happened so far is someone called Cormac is laying claim to Bryce, and Bryce needs to be his bride. And obviously Bryce is an unmarried fae or half fae. She's still unmarried, and so she is like the property of the males in her bloodline, which is sick. That's the thing I don't like about faes. I love the mythology behind faes, and every now and then I do get sucked into fae
Oh, shit.
lore,
Did you
but
see that?
part of it is a little bit fucked up. So I'm hoping Bryce can get out of that deal.
Isn't
But
it cute?
also
Isn't it
Ethan,
pretty?
Connor's brother. I'm wondering, is there going to be some
It's
kind
like
of
a
love
wind
triangle
turbine.
with Hunt, Ethan, and Bryce? I doubt it.
You
I
pink
doubt it. But
bricks.
for some reason, I was just getting.
I haven't really
some vibes,
started. I just
some
sketched. And I'm
vibes.
like, oh, I need a
Maybe
pick.
I'm reading too much into that.
I made
Especially
2
since the
boxes,
main
and I'm like, oh, I'm
conflict,
done.
I guess, of the first few chapters is whether or not Bryce thinks her and Hunt Are a couple. Bryce didn't know what the hell she was to Hunt. Girlfriend seemed ridiculous when talking about Hunt fucking at the law.
No.
I'm like, why?
Oh shit, it fell right in the trash. It's good.
Why does it seem ridiculous? He wears a baseball cap backwards. He calls you sweetheart every 2 minutes. Is she trying to convince us that he is some kind of brooding, masculine figure who doesn't have emotions? Because that's the opposite of what Hunt's been up to this point.
I probably should have revised
He
this
is
before I
nothing but
started.
emotion. He's been through emotions. He's going through the motions.
Some very little
You know,
cost.
as Buffy would say.
Come
So, like,
on.
why would it be ridiculous that she would be
I
his
think that's gonna be
girlfriend?
funnier.
Because it's Hunt fucking Athelor. Do you even know Hunt?
We got to
Also,
get...
Rune, I was hoping he would be gay.
No.
I'm not gonna lie. He does have a bit of a sex scene with a female. However, Fury is currently scratching my LGBTQ plus itch. There might be some ass in the kick if someone makes a move on my girlfriend. Juniper glowed at the term girlfriend. You know what? I love Juniper and Fury more than I love Bryce and Hunt, which might be weird. Like, don't get me wrong, Hunt is sexy. All I can think about while making this tea is how much I want to be teabagged by Hunt. But when it comes to ships, Fury and Juniper take it for me, not Bryce and Hunt. So not a whole lot is going on right now, but I hope you like my frozen mug. It's a heat-changing one.
Tree.
Being so cute. Probably can't see anything. It's currently nearly 3 a.m. I am 277 pages in to House of Sky and Breath. I finished part 1. Nothing happened for so long. And then something happened like out of nowhere. You know, like how the Reapers kidnap Rune and Bryce goes in, and then the Reapers tell Bryce that the Prince of the Pit wants to fight Bryce one-on-one. It was like,
so the joke of the thing is, it's like, oh, they're being chased in the forest, and they're climbing up a tree. They're gonna climb up a tree, a very big tree. It's gonna be a very big tree.
And how Danica is connected to Sophie, and apparently, like, they were exchanging emails and all these things.
They're climbing up a tree. The funny part is, it's like they're being chased by a monster, not a human, a monster. It's not like a wolf, it's a monster. And it's like scary looking. Scary looking.
With all of these documents and newspaper clippings that.
So the joke is, oh, what is it? Like, oh, what is it? And then I don't know if I want to spoil it, because if I build it up in my head, it is not gonna be as good as I believe it to be.
Look at you, so cute. Look, Ash. Oh, you flopping around.
Just grip for dear life.
You're so cute. Oh. Back to life, back to reality. Oh, and here comes my other baby. Hi, Tobu. Is it time for bed? Tobu? Yeah, speaking of my cats and their
she's just using her
timing,
hands. She's just like really
when
fucking
it got to
strong.
the part where Bryce gave Hunt a blowjob, it was like the most sexy stuff that was happening
the first one
in a
done.
while. And that was when Ash decided that he wanted to, you know, lie on me and demand my attention. The scene with Bryce and Hunt was a bit hot, but like also before that, every single time she puts her fingers in his hair, he like purrs. He purred. It says he nearly purred. And I remember in the first book he also purred or wanted to purr. I'm like, look, is he a fucking cat or is he an angel? Can we just pick one or the other? I feel like I'm not caring a whole lot about what's happening with the whole like Dusk's Truth and Project Thur and all of this, because I'm just like not attached to the fact that we have Sophie, who I don't really know. I mean, yes, I'm a bit intrigued about where she actually is and if her brother is okay and all of that stuff. Yes. And it was kind of exciting when it turned out that Cormac is Sophie's boyfriend. Like, that was fine and well, but like when I'm thinking about the twists and turns of the first book, I'm just like, this one doesn't have any kind of weight compared to it. I'm just not really caring too much. And things are being explained over and over again. Things are explained to us about what's going on with like Sophie, for instance, and then we get the same conversation between other characters as they're explaining it to them.
The joke of it is that
so we keep getting the same
she's intensely scared, and she's just like, surviving at all costs, and these two are like a little too chill about it. Like, have you noticed in like a lot of like scary shit, they're like, there's like a couple people who are just like they're too chill. Like, you should be freaking out. Like, this is the appropriate reaction, and these two are the ones being like, oh, you think it's a wolf or some shit?
So maybe things will pick up in part 2. As I said, it is nearly 3 a.m, so I do need to go to bed. And I can't read this tomorrow either because I've got some friends staying. So I have to wait another day for me to read it, which I'm kind of gutted about, honestly. But it'll be nice to have a day off from reading.
I hope sketching some
Because all I feel like I've been doing is just like reading. Considering I only started House of Earth and Blood yesterday, and I'm already like halfway through. Well, not halfway, but like partway through House of Sky and Breath. It's like, well, damn, girl, you're getting through it pretty quickly. But I am a bit of a fast reader. But look at me, babies. We're going to bed now. We're going to bed. I am not a hater, okay? I'm a truther. I have finished House of Sky and Breath, and I was going to come in and give you an update after I finished the second part of this book. But then I was like, what do I even talk about? Like, what would I be updating you on? Absolutely fuck all. Because, yeah, I mean, obviously things happen in the book, but, like, when I think about the actual plot of this book, I don't know, I was just really bored, and it just felt so messy and sloppy and a bit all over the place, and it didn't feel very cohesive, and there wasn't really that much fun to be had here, unfortunately. And you know what, now that I've read the ending in context, instead of just, like, reading that one line out of nowhere, I mean, it's interesting, don't get me wrong, it's interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing where we go from here. But if, like, say A Court of Silver Flames, right? I really enjoy that book, but I don't like Feyre and Rhysand in that book because it's weird when you go, like, from being the main characters of a trilogy to just being, you know, side characters. And I don't know how Sarah Janet did it, but, like, she made them unlikable, and I really could not stand Rhysand by the end of A Court of Silver Flames. And now I just think it's going to be even worse seeing those characters in a totally different series, because now, like, Bryce has sort of opened a portal and she's gone to the world of Akatar, which is something that the Asteri were kind of using Bryce for. Like, they wanted to use her because, you know, she is the chosen one. So, like, that's neither here nor there. All of that pretty much happened in, like, the last 100 pages, though. Like, the stuff with Rigelus, and all the revelations with Bryce in opening this rift. And up until that point, I just didn't really care a whole lot. And don't get me wrong, I'm still excited to read book 3. I just can't believe how bored I was for most of this. It was just a whole lot of chat. Like, we started off the book with Sophie, and we're trying to find a meal, and we do end up finding a meal. It turns out it's not actually all that special. And, like, he's gone off to live with Bryce's parents. Okay, that's a nice little happy ever after. But that happened, like, halfway through, I guess, somewhere around there. But the stuff with Sophie doesn't really amount to a whole lot in this. And then we just have so many connections to Danica. And, like, can we get over Danica, please? Like, it seems like every single road leads to Danica. So many secrets keep coming up, and then Bryce is like, that doesn't sound like Danica. I know Danica. She would never do that, or she wouldn't have been with you. What is it when, like, Baxian says, oh, me and Danica were, like, mates? It's like, Bryce was like, no, that's not true. I'm just like, Bryce, girl, how many times has this happened so far? And we're only in the first 2 books of the series. It wouldn't surprise me if Danica turned out to be alive. And it turns out like she's been orchestrating the whole war, and she's the bad guy. Like, it just wouldn't surprise me at this point. I honestly do wish that we could just let Danica rest. I'm kind of sick of everything being tied back to her. Or that she did all of this stuff before she died, that Bryce did and all that. I'm just like, how close were they actually? Like, the more we find out about Danica, the less I'm liking her. I thought she was so badass. And, like, don't get me wrong, she does badass things. She found out so much, she's done so much. But at this point, I'm like, she hasn't been that good a friend to Bryce then. I mean, Gage, like, she put a horn on freaking Bryce's back. She put a target on Bryce's back. She put her in danger without telling her anything about what she's just done to her. So yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at this point if she turns out to be the big bad at the end of this. So number 1 on my wish list for House of Flame and Shadow, less of Danica. Hunt and Bryce, again, I'm just gonna sound like such a hater, but I don't really like them as a couple. I'm sorry. Hunt has become whipped. Like, Hunt is supposed to be the Umbra Mortis. He's supposed to be this really formidable person, and, like, you know, it just doesn't come across that way whatsoever. Every single time he is with Bryce, he's thinking about fucking Bryce. And when he's not with Bryce, He's thinking about fucking Bryce. He's whipped in the amount of times his balls tightened. Why is it fucking cold in there?
That got me.
No. Literally, Bryce took a breath. Hunt's balls tightened. Bryce shoved her finger in her belly button and did a little bit of this and pulled out a string of belly button fluff. Hunt's balls tightened. I'm just sick of it. And actually, Rune's balls kept tightening as well. Look, that's not normal ball behaviour. They need to get checked. But the sex scenes, honestly, between Hunt and Bryce, I wanted to skip them. And I've never said that before about any kind of sex scene. I wanted to skip them. I just found them so cringy. I just did not want them to. And I think because this book lacked a cohesive plot, it was like, okay, we're sacrificing plot for this. And the romance is moving way too quickly. The fact that Hunt was face deep in clunge when Bryce said, I love you for the first time. I didn't like it. I didn't like it. It's too quick. It's too soon. I'm not liking them as a couple. I'm not. Like, there was a little bit of sexual tension in the first book, yes. But then as soon as we get into this one and they get into like normal couple behaviour, I'm like, all that tension just fizzled out. And I believe that's probably why Sarah Chandler didn't want them to fully go at it until the solstice. Because she wanted to keep that sexual tension, but it's gone. It's gone, girl. There is no sexual tension whatsoever. In fact, every single time it looks like they're about to do it, I roll my goddamn eyes. I'm like, oh, please, no, not again. Where is Hunt's personality outside of Bryce? Please show me. And show me the receipts. Because I'm not going to take it at face value. And the whole stuff with Ethan and trying to connect with Connor in the Bone Quarter and all of that stuff, I didn't care whatsoever. I couldn't care for it. Rune and his like mindling sex with Daylight, I was just like, we're having mind sex now? Like, what is going on? Can we just get to the plot? It's honestly so weird me saying that though, because 9 times out of 10, I'm usually all in on the film.
What do you think it is?
Not today.
I don't fucking know.
The conflict between Juniper and Bryce
too.
The fact that Bryce was using like her princess privileges. And again, like this is just making Bryce sound even less likable to me because she's just perfect.
Just circling.
She's just everything. Absolutely everything. She can open the rift. She's got the horn. She's half fae. She can teleport. But yeah, that Juniper and Bryce conflict, it's about fucking dance school. I don't know if I'm connected with any character anymore. I still like Fury because we're only getting little bits of Fury. But as soon as we get any more screen time or page time of a character, I go off them. I do. I don't know what to say anymore. The amount of times that Sarah J. Maas goes the male and the female, especially in regards to when like someone's speaking, I found that so annoying. It was hard enough as well when we have like a growing cast of characters to know exactly who is speaking at certain times or who is doing what in a certain scene, and then we get the male, the female. I'm just like, can you just say their fucking names? And I think the only reason right now why I'm kind of liking the ending a little bit is because it went from being boring to something actually happening, and I guess the bar is pretty low on that. I've got to take what I can take. I guess as well, the stakes just aren't really here. Whenever it seems like someone's gonna die, it just doesn't happen. There was a moment where Ethan gets his like throat ripped out by some demons, and he just heals and it's all fine because like when people have made the drop and stuff, they are literally pretty much immortal unless they are like really badly grievously wounded. And that's why I thought with Ethan, because it said, oh, his lifeless body and stuff like that. So I was like, oh, perfect, we've had a death. That makes things a bit more exciting. But no, pretty much everyone important.
The reading's so funny. It's like, oh, someone died.
But like, he wasn't someone I was ever connected to anyway. And it really does take a lot of the tension out of a story when you just know every single person is protected by plot armor, and Sarah J. Maas just won't kill them off. I feel like the only time I've had a shocking death in the series was Danica in the first 60 pages of the first book. But I'm sick of her now. Like, seriously, I'm sick of her. It almost feels like she didn't die because of how often she is brought up and how often she is connected to what semblance of a plot we have. What I'm excited for in book 3 is that Hunt and Bryce are most likely going to be separated now because I have no idea when Bryce will be able to go back to Midgard. She is in a predicament, so that makes me excited because I just don't want to read another book where they're just constantly horny for each other. Although saying that, I bet you most of the book, the next book will be Bryce pining after Hunt and Hunt pining after Bryce. And yeah, I guess they're in love. They've said I love you to one another now. I haven't felt that natural progression get there or anything, but they've said I love you, so yeah, of course they're going to miss one another, but I just need some individuality from them, and for Hunt to actually live up to the Umbra Mortis name, and not just be this whipped guy who just, he comes across as such a teenager. I want a man. Stop acting like a man. And it would be so nice as well if you could stop pairing as well. So I'm going to give House of Sky and Breath 2 stars. 2 stars is fitting. It's not the worst thing I've ever read, but it definitely was one of the most boring that I've read so far this year. And a big disappointment too. To follow from the first book, can you give me that? Please. Did anyone know that when you search House of Flame and Shadow on Google, it does this? Okay, you sexy bitches, and yes, I'm talking about you. I'm partway through House of Flame and Shadow. I'm on page 239, and I haven't quite finished part 1 yet. I was reading this really late last night, and decided I wanted to go to bed, like the old man I am. Gone are the days when I could stay up until 5 in the morning, binging an entire book. So, first impressions of this. I'm liking this more than the second book already. I feel like there is way more intrigue, and it feels like it has a genuine plot that we're kind of working with right now. And I'm just so invested in what the characters are doing and how they're going to get out of the situations that they're in. So the fact that Bryce is pretty much with Nesta and Azriel for the majority of the first part of this actually made me quite happy. Like, I'm not too sure how I feel about the whole multiverse thing, but having Bryce interact with Nesta and having these moments in this kind of like caveman structure where they're going through this, they're being caved in, which actually turns out, why is that book upside down?
Not doing
which
anything.
actually turned out to be orchestrated by Azriel, and Nesta was in on it, just to get more of a vibe from Bryce and to see exactly who she is and what kind of threat she presents to the world. So I really love those scenes in the caves. It's when Celine is talking about her story, which I don't know why, but it gave me kind of God of War vibes. You know, the video game God of War Ragnarok, it gave me those kinds of vibes. It's the Asteri, but like, what was the old name of them? I've forgotten, and I have it highlighted somewhere, but I don't tab, so it's kind of hard to find again. Anyway, look, you've probably read this book, so already know. So it was really interesting to find out the history of them and how they sort of got to Midgard. Like, that was all very interesting. You know what, this whole sequence of Nessa and Bryce and meeting Azriel for the majority of part 1, it had atmosphere, which is something that I think the second book solely lacked. The second book had zero atmosphere. It was really hard to feel immersed in that very dialogue-heavy, question-asking circle of hell it was reading that book. But this one, it feels a lot more, I don't know, like, it just already feels better. And I do like the fact that Bryce is split up from Hunt. Like, I'm honestly rooting for them to be split up more often. In Hunt, Rune, and Danica's mate, I keep wanting to call him Baxton, but I know that's wrong. Braxton, Tony Braxton? Oh, Daglan, that's what the old Asteri were called. Daglan. And Bryce is trying to find out how to defeat them, which honestly is so interesting. I kind of love that plot, but what's the other freaking guy's name? What I need to do is do a character list, I think. Baxian, that's it. So Baxian, Rune, and Hunt are currently being tortured, and Ritualist is orchestrating that whole thing, and Lydia, who is Agent Daybreak, Daylight, whatever, she is trying to get help to get Rune and Hunt and I've already forgotten his name. Like, seriously, his name is not sticking in my brain. B. I'm going to call him B. She's trying to get them free, trying to get them to escape. And so she has enlisted the help of Tharian, Declan, Mark, and honestly, I love the fact that Declan and Mark are like boyfriends. Like, that's just so cute. And all of that, again, I find so intriguing. Like, honestly, the plot is really good in this one so far. I don't want to get my hopes up too much because, again, I'm only like 250 pages in out of 800 and something, so there is time for it to go tits up. I will say as well though, I really don't like Hunt. I really don't. Who is Hunt away from Bryce?
Do you
I love the fact that Bryce is able to be her own character away from Hunt. Bryce's stuff with Nesta, great. Honestly, great. Like, she's able to have conversations, she's able to have her own personality, and she actually kind of is more likable without her pining over Hunt every 2 pages. And she's mentioned Hunt a couple of times, but like not overwhelmingly. But every single time we go to Hunt, he is constantly talking about Bryce or thinking about Bryce. Every single time. And I know he can't do much because he is getting like tortured and shit, but like, who is Hunt away from Bryce? Who is he? If you can't actually answer that question, then I'm sorry to say that he's a terrible character. Like, I feel that's like such an unpopular opinion, so I really do apologize. And like, I do find him attractive. He is hot, whatever. But honestly, Hunt, go 5 seconds without mentioning Bryce challenge. Every single time he mentions her, I'm actually getting so fed up.
Do you think it can
talk? As well. Like, oh my god, stop,
I can't.
Please. Hunt should have the sounds and smells. Bryce and his future and those beautiful things, that was the image he held in his mind instead. Like, I understand, again, like, he can't do much, but I'm telling you, even if he wasn't in this cell, if he wasn't actually being tortured and stuff, he would still be non-stop talking about Bryce every single time. I do like some of the moments with Rune and B, especially when Rune makes like some kind of joke. Also, it's just like really nice not to have like a really cringy sex scene every like 5 pages. That just doesn't need to happen. Where's the joke? Like, this was like one of the very few moments where I liked Hunt. But like Rune says, want to hear a joke? 2 angels and a fey prince walk into a dungeon, and then they all just start laughing.
What is it?
Baxian, Rune, Hunt, and then Pollux comes in and he says, shut the fuck up, and then Hunt laughed loud. And like, I can understand like that would be so funny. I like when Hunt can connect with Rune and Baxian, and it feels almost like a little bit of a brother kind of thing. So that's
make a little funny comic.
But then he'll mention Bryce, and I'll roll my eyes.
I'm just at the sketch stage, and it's taking me 30 minutes.
I don't care. So. Tharian as well, I like his storyline as well. You know how he kind of gave himself over to the Viper Queen, and he's now seemingly addicted to her blood, or like the venom that she produces. It's like this really big high, so I wonder if maybe we'll explore some kind of addiction storyline for him. I like Ari as well, who he kind of butts heads with under the Viper Queen's rule, but now she's been moved somewhere else, so I don't know where she's gone to. Also, like, as much as I'm finding it fine in the whole multiverse thing, and I am liking the Bryce and Nesta scenes and stuff, what I don't love is the fact that when Sarah J. Maas does have this sort of crossover kind of thing, it's the rimming of the previous characters that really puts me off, because it feels like fan fiction. Like Bryce, literally, she takes one look at Nesta and she's like, she's a warrior. And I'm just like, have you read the Court of Thorns and Roses books? Is that why you think that? Like, you can't just tell that from just looking at her. Like, she's like, oh, those eyes, those eyes. I'm just like, and Recent says one line, he says a line, and Bryce is like, he has such power. He must be the axis of this entire world. I'm just like, what is it about the current main character, previous main characters? I'm automatically thinking, like, they're incredible and they're amazing and they're, you know what I mean? It's like, it's such a nitpicky thing for me, but that kind of interaction where it's like, that person's a warrior, she's a warrior. I'm just like, why would you think that from just looking at them? You know, I do like Nesta a lot, but you don't just get that from just looking at her. And that's probably nitpicky, you probably could. I don't know, it just didn't feel natural. It felt very clunky, the way that they were interacting to begin with.
It's not a bear.
I didn't like it. I don't like rimming the characters from before. Like, a lot of the inner monologue that Bryce has as she's going along with Nesta, it just doesn't feel natural, you know? I don't know. Could just be me thing. But I am liking this so far. Separation of Bryce and Hunt, perfect. And a lot more of an interesting plotline. And who knows, maybe Hunt will get more interesting now, because is it Rigulus has taken some of the lightning from Hunt? And it seems like Hunt has to choose which one dies, Baxian or Rune. And I'm like, okay, give Hunt a good storyline. Give him a storyline. Give him something to do and think of outside of Bryce, please. Show me he is a genuine, fully fleshed character. Please, that's all I'm asking. Not just a love interest, but something more than a love interest. Okay, I'm currently doing some reading sprints with my patrons so that I can knock out House of Flame and Shadow. I'm currently on page 599. I am so close, but I did finish part 2. And like, This book's like giving me a little bit of a headache. I feel like I preferred part 1 over part 2. I feel like part 1 had a lot more adventure elements to it. It felt a little bit more exciting. Part 2 had a little bit more of like a lot of explanations for things, like and how things work. You know, just a lot of things that I didn't find as interesting as the first part. Some interesting things do happen, and revelations, like the fact that Hunt has 2 gay dads. I mean, not really. But he was kind of like lab made in a way to be a weapon. And that gave Hunt a little bit more to work with. Like if this ever gets adapted in the future and the actor of Hunt has to act out all of these scenes, I feel like this could be something that the actor can really chew in on. Because even up to this point, just not a whole lot say about Hunt in general. I was hoping that Bryce and Hunt would be separated for a lot longer. However, they do reunite. Hunt and Rune and Braxian do end up escaping with the help of Lydia. Okay, one thing I do hate though, like and it was so good at the time too, the fact that Lydia, she dies, right? And I was like, oh, finally we have some stakes. Yeah, at the end of chapter 35, Lydia let out a choked bloody laugh as she died. Right, that's how the chapter ended. I was like, oh my. Like, we actually have some kind of stakes here, like something exciting is really happening, and like the characters actually feel like they're in danger. What? But then just a few pages later, like 15 pages later, she had a functioning heart again. If the monitor marking every heartbeat was any indication, because Lydia had died. When Damien had carried her back from the core, she'd been completely dead. Even her veneer healing abilities had been overtaxed. And yet she still manages to survive. I'm like, but the end of the chapter said that she died. Like, that's a lie. Is it too much to ask for people to die? It's feeling like too lovey-dovey right now. The characters are like supporting one another so much, and like they're so proud of one another, and they're like, she's a fucking queen. Yes, queen. Why does this feel so safe? This is what it's feeling like to me. It feels so safe. Don't get me wrong, I'm still really intrigued by the plot. Like, we're working against the Asteri. They need to take on 6 Asteri. Bryce, she has 2 bits of star power. Right? Thea did some weird shit with the star magic, right? Okay, Bryce has 2 of those pieces, but Helena used Abelin's Nexus, the Alliance and Natural Magic to hide the 3rd piece. So Bryce needs to get the 3rd piece of star magic. Trying to take it seriously. And if she can get that piece, the Sword and Knife will be able to open a portal to nowhere, and we can trap the Asteri inside. Like, that's kind of the goal. So the genuine goal really, like, overall is to take down the Asteri, which is great. Like, I love that goal. It's going to be so hard to do, and I'm excited for that. Like, I am excited for the overall plot, the overall plot. It's going to be good. I can feel it. I can feel it in my waters. I can feel it in my house of many waters. But everything else, I'm really not liking. I don't love the fact that Lydia survived. I'm really just wanting true danger. Like, I want to feel scared for the characters. I don't feel scared for them. I know they're gonna win. I know it in my heart. And that most likely there's gonna be no casualties. Although I did love one scene with the necromancy. Yeah, when Ethan had, you know, he obviously killed Sigrid, and Hypaxia is bringing her back to life, essentially. She'd sewed Sigrid's head back on. Like, that's disgusting. But I love the whole scenes of her sort of coming back to life. Like, the stitches popping. Sigrid slowly turned her head, but her chest, it didn't rise and fall. She wasn't breathing. And she's now a heart, like, a walking corpse. And just, like, all of that stuff was so good. Like, I love the visuals, don't get me wrong. But I'm just not loving the characters this time around. I'm really finding it so hard to connect. Like, Bryce has another name to her name. Like, she can world walk. She's a world walker. Like, fucking hell, what next? Don't even get me started on her power. All she has to do is light the room up. This is Bryce whenever she uses her magic.
I should have had an extra box.
An iPhone 12 could do the same thing. And I'm just not really finding like, the magic interesting anymore. I'm really not, which is a shame because, again, I'm not being a hater. I'm not being a hater.
I need some paint and bloom between here. Or it's not going to land as much.
The other thing, I don't like love. But I do. I love love. Love is love. But why is it every single time
I can't even erase it either.
a male gets any kind of whiff of a female in this, their balls tighten or their cock twitches? It's like, can these guys just have a nice romantic moment without it becoming sexual? And again, I'm the last person to ever say something like this. I love me some sexual freedom. I love heat and spiciness. But I honestly wish to God that we would stop having half sex scenes or like near sex scenes or whatever is in this. I just want it to stop. Like, can Rue not have a conversation with Lydia without him getting an erection? It's honestly kind of gross. It's kind of gross. Sarah J. Maas is making it seem like every single time a guy interacts with a girl, he gets hard. It's the same with Hunt. I know every single person in this is going to be absolutely gorgeous and godlike and goddess-like, and they're the best things you've ever seen in your life. But come on, every time. Can we not have one conversation without some kind of movement in the groin area? So honestly, I'm just focusing on plot right now and plot alone. I don't even think I have a favourite character anymore, which is such a shame. I miss Fury. I want Fury. I think I've only got like just over 200 pages left. I'm sure as we gear up for this battle against the Asteri, that it will be more plot heavy than character driven. And we're gonna have like less of this and more of this. But it's still better than House of Skybreath. Because at least I'm not bored. Like, I'm not bored, which is great. But at the same time, I was kind of hoping I'd have fallen head over heels in love with this by this point. But the characters are putting me off. I haven't quite finished yet. I have about 90 pages. Can you love and hate something at the same time? Because that feels like me right now. Like, I'm loving the action that's happening right now. I'm loving where the plot's going. I love how it's making me feel. Like, it's not great by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm having such a good time right now. And don't get me wrong, there are moments where I'm like, I really hate this. Like, I do not want this. And there are other moments where I'm like, oh, I kind of love this. You know, I want to like read more of this, and I want the next book right now and stuff like that. So I am on page 742. Oh my gosh, I don't even know what the hell's just happened. Rune has just shot Lydia. He's saying, I can't let you get yourself killed. And she says, I will never forgive you for this. I know Rune said and fired one shot right to her thigh. Like, to stop her because, like, she's trying to find her kids. But obviously that's going to be putting herself in danger. And Rune's like, no. So that's really extreme. He's just shot her. But now, I will never forgive you for this. Never. I know. Like, is that it then? Is it over between them? I kind of hope so. I'm not going to lie. I don't root for anyone. I don't root for any of the romantic relationships. We had this really random sex scene between Bryce and Hunt, and then Rune and Lydia, almost back to back. And I don't want it. I just don't want it. And it's like in every sex scene as well, Sarah J. Maas says her entrance, or say something like, met him stroke for stroke, and things like that. You know, it's just such repetition that I don't know if it's my ADHD, or if it's just annoying me, just in general, but like how constantly repetitious the sex scenes are. I just don't want them anymore. I really don't. In fact, I would find them a lot more tolerable as a couple, Bryce and Hunt and Lydia and Rune, if we didn't have them just randomly being like, I want you inside of me, in the middle of talking about a war, or in the middle of talking about hundreds of people dying. You know, Lydia could be like, oh, you know, my kids are in danger, and Regulus might kill them. Let's have sex. That's literally how it comes across as. In Bryce and Hunt, I don't vibe with them. I really don't. However, Hunt has his Umbra Mortis suit. He has that. He's gonna look badass. You know, he has his two swords. Like, now we're gonna see Hunt actually do so many cool things. Now that we have so much happening in terms of the battles that are going on, the Asteri that are getting, well, not exactly brought down just yet, but Bryce and everyone have released this video of the truth. You know, the truth. The Asteri have infected the water. They're infected with some kind of parasite, and they're taking power from people they don't need to. They don't need this power. They don't need to be in charge. Like, their power is a sham. They need you more than you need them, in a sense. You know, like, that's kind of how it's coming down to. So I'm really loving the plot. Like, I'm loving the plot right now. I mean, obviously it can be better and stuff, but like, it's fun and it's entertaining, so I'm loving that side of it. But it's the characters. I don't really think I like the characters anymore. There's too much ass kissing between them. And like, pretty much every single page I have to care about how amazing each of them are. And it just makes me resent them. And I know that's probably really weird to say, but like, I'm sick of hearing how great and powerful and amazing and perfect they are. Like, it's just, I can't relate to them. They're losing their relatability every single book. Bryce was so relatable at the start of House of Earth and Blood. By House of Flame and Shadow, she has all of these accolades. She's the best person in the world, the most powerful. Only she can take down everyone. You know what I mean? It's just like, I've had enough. I will say as well, I liked how Nesta was brought into it again by giving Bryce the mask. That was really exciting. I like that. Oh yeah, in the video and stuff with Hunt and Bryce telling everyone to deal with it, tell you that it's worth it fighting back, that it's possible to defy them and live, that their hierarchies, their rules, it's all bullshit. It's time to put a stop to it. It feels very Mockingjay. It feels very Hunger Games Mockingjay. But we're really like building up to something. Oh, it actually as well, the scene between Connor and Ethan, and Connor saying all of our second light from every soul here, it's yours to put in that bullet, use it well. Because now there's like a Godsphere rifle that, like this bullet thing that Connor gives to Ethan that Bryce now needs, obviously. But like, it's so sad. Ethan's throat constricted, but if you turn into second light, I'm already gone, Ethan. That's kind of sad. And again, I don't love the characters, but I can tell when there's a sad moment. I'm not that heartless. Oh my god, I was totally gagged when the Under King exploded into sparkling shards of ice. Literally. When Sabine, oh my god, when Ethan kills Sabine, wigless. Absolutely wigless. That was so cool. And now he's the Prime. And the Autumn King, how could I forget as well? Rune killing the Autumn King. Rune, who had driven the sword right through their father's cold heart. Like, he killed his father. Wigless. Wigless. This is one of the times when I agree with Hunt. When, obviously, like, Bryce is a world walker. And then when Hunt says, added to Bryce's list of magical starborn princess crap. Like, literally. Anyway, it's really exciting again. Very excited to read the last 90-ish pages. Finish the book. What time is it now? It's like 11 p.m. now, so I probably won't finish it until around about midnight. Just after midnight. Here we go. Okay. I finished.
The Hy-Vee cereal sale. This Friday through Sunday.
Fuck,
Select cereal is just $1.
Boycott.
The positives. Now, the negatives, it was a bit of a messy ending. And is this it? Is there not going to be another Crescent City book after this? Things wrapped up. But I feel like we will be getting more. Like, what about House of Many Waters? Like, are we not getting that? So I'm so conflicted. I was so excited for this confrontation with the Asteri and, you know, Bryce taking them down. But all that, like, conflict, the fight, all that really was.
I need to buy a new phone charger.
Bryce,
my phone's been on like 20% for like 6 days.
Power at the floor,
Get the bodies at the
gun
floor. Get the
thing
bodies at the
of
floor.
Ethan, shooting the floor, making a black hole, the Asteri getting sucked in, Bryce getting sucked in, going into deep space, Hunt coming in and getting Bryce out of there.
Oh shit, I don't want to do this.
Bryce dying but not actually dying. Like, we knew she wasn't dead. Like, come on, Hunt, what was with the theatrics? She obviously wasn't dead. I mean, she was dead. Like, she literally did die. But, like, she wasn't staying dead. We knew
I'm not gonna
this.
go over it.
We knew
Should I go
this.
over
She
it?
wasn't going
That's
to die. Nobody died.
Oh, shit.
Literally. This is what I said. This was one of my big problems with this book so far, and I think with the previous book too. There was just no stakes. And when you have a series like Crescent City, where literally in the first 60 pages of book 1, somebody who you think is a really important character, and does turn out to still be an important character, dies within 60 pages, gets killed. It's like you're kind of expecting a certain quality from this series, but then nobody important really dies after that. Like, none of the good guys die after that, really. We have what is supposed to be this war that's like 15,000 years in the making, or, you know, like the Asteri have this really rich history, and yet there just wasn't any casualty. There wasn't any tension with taking them down. You know, it let me down. It did. It let me down. It happened way too quickly. And what was the point of the whole, like, dagger in the horn thing? Like, nothing really came out of that. It felt like we were building up to a little bit more than what we actually got. It's like Sarah Janet got to a certain point in this book, and then her agent called and said, look, we need this tomorrow. I do have this thing where I really enjoy how addictive the writing style is, but, like, I couldn't feel anything. I couldn't, it was very hard to. I think this is the problem I have with this series, like, and I did love the Akatar series, and I didn't really read the Throne of Glass series, but, like, this one, it felt like the emotions, I was being told what to feel. I was being told what I should think about characters. So, like, if a character's feeling a certain emotion,
it's upside down.
It's told in a way like, oh, it was pure joy and love. It was pure joy and hope. You know, things like that were told so directly to me that it made me go back, and it made me, like, kind of resent what was being told to me. Almost like, you know, when you don't like being told what to do. It's like, I don't want you to tell me I should be feeling hope and joy and love right now. I want to feel it. Show me how to feel that. And the same with characters. Like, they tell you the emotions. They tell you what you should be feeling. And I have this need where I'm like, no, don't tell me what to feel. I don't feel that. I don't feel the love and the hope and the joy and what have you. And I'm not a big fan of, like, the way that magic was depicted in this. By the end of it, really. Like, for instance, Lydia had known even as a child that she was pure power, and she'd kept that power buried in her veins. So the amount of times that we are told the characters have power, or just, like, light, and I'm like, okay, but what does that mean? What does that mean? What do you mean? What do you mean? I honestly feel like it means less. Every single time, it's just said, oh, they had power. They, through their power, they had power, and, you know, it just, this could never be adapted. Because all it would be is, well, one, you wouldn't be able to see the fucking screen. Because Bryce would be like a fucking headlight. It would literally be Crescent City, directed by J.J. Abrams. You won't be able to see anything. People will just be throwing light and power, whatever power means. You know, it's like, what is power? Define that for me. So I found, like, the whole magic and power system, like, the amount of corniness as well. It was love that was holding the portal open, that held it open until the very end, until Hunt and Bryce were through, crashing into the dirt of Midgard, the blue sky filling his sight, and all that beautiful air filling his lungs. You know, it's like, it's so corny. The ending is so corny. And then, yeah, Bryce is dead. Like, no, she isn't. I literally wrote here, no, she isn't. I looked down at his mate, so still and cold and lifeless. That scream that came out of him shook the very world. Like, but we know she's not dead. Like, I was literally reading this, like, she'll be alive in 2 pages. So, it's Jessica. Jessica says, after 15,000 years I've had my fill of Midgard. You caused me to immortality, now I'm making it a gift. The gift of a year's long life. I give it freely to Bryce Quinlan if she wants it. Napoleon snapped, that curse is for the living. And she says that it is a good thing I have a way with the dead. Like, it's just bullshit. It's bullshit. Well, Hypaxia says that last bit. But, like, it's just bullshit. Like, come on. Bryce dies. So, Jessica goes into this afterlife kind of world thing where Bryce is. And over the hill, there is 7 figures. At first, I was like, oh shit, is it Snow White and 7 fucking dwarfs? Because seriously, how more cornier can we get? Because it turns out to be fucking Danica, Connor, like the pack of devils. It was so corny. So much of it's corny. This is why I don't love the romance, I think, being depicted in the series. I just find Bryce and Hunt corny as fuck. I find Lydia and Rune corny as fuck. Although I will say with Lydia, I love the depiction of motherhood. You know, when she says goodbye to her sons, making sure that they're safe. They've always Stefan say that too. Perhaps finally understanding who their mother was, what guided her all these years, will continue to guide her in her final moments. Like, it is so nice to see that depiction of motherhood. I do think Lydia, as a character alone, is probably one of the best characters in this. Like, where was Fury? I really wanted Fury, and she didn't even appear. One thing I will say as well, again, this review is going to be all over the place, because I'm just like, I'm still in my feelings, like, what am I thinking right now? I don't know, I'm a mess. But what I'm really glad we didn't get was, because even though we have this whole Avatar crossover thing, we did not get that Avengers moment. I genuinely thought we would end up getting to this point where there would be this big battle and all of the Akatar cast, all of the Crescent City cast will be running onto the battlefield, fighting together, and that would be the Avengers moment. I'm so glad we did not get that. I would have been so pissed off if we did, honestly. I thought we were heading that way. So that's one way that this book actually surprised me. Also interesting as well, when Bryce returns the mask, she also gives Nesta the Star Sword. The Agent Starboard is over on Midgard, it ends with me. I think that A-pointed star was tattooed on you for a reason. Take that sword and go figure out why. So I'm like, is this going to be explored in Akatar 5? Like, when's that coming? What's next? You know, what's next from Sarah Jana? Because, you know, I'm going to buy it anyway. Whatever it is, I'm going to get it. Even if I did find this a bit all over the place, a little bit messy. Bryce ends the royal houses, the Fey monarchy is abolished. Like, good. Like, I'm glad all of that happened. I don't know. I guess I was just expecting more from the ending. It didn't feel as epic as we were building to. I need to sell this a little bit more, I think. But I'm gonna give this one 3 stars because I do think it was better than House of Sky and Breath. And I know I've just been sat here complaining this entire time. I do think though that this one kept my interest a lot more. I thought the first part was pretty damn entertaining. Third part, while messy, pretty entertaining for the most part. Second part was a little bit dull to me, but still better than House of Sky and Breath, I think. So all 3 books have been read, and I do still think that the first book, House of Earth and Blood, is the best book. I think it was the least convoluted and the most fun to read, I think. It was before characters got really annoying, love interests lost all personality, and just became obsessed with their love interests. You know, like, yeah, I think the first book's my favourite, followed by House of Flame and Shadow, and then House of Sky and Breath is my least favourite. 4-star, 2-star, 3-star. That's how the series has gone for me. And I feel pretty happy with that rating. That feels right to me right now. Give me more time with House of Flame and Shadow, though. That could go down to a 2.5, maybe, I don't know. But at the minute, it's a 3. Also, I want to end this vlog by saying the first 2 books have this really nice matte feel to the dust jackets, whereas House of Flame and Shadow has this cheaper feel to it. It doesn't feel as nice. So I don't know why that is, but I just wanted to end this vlog on that note. So thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to leave this video a like if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you haven't already. Leave all the comments down below. Let me know what you've...
Hey everybody, it's Lavender Town. Today we're going to be talking about making good comics, and basically all the mistakes that I used to make that made my comics bad. But first, a quick shout out to the sponsor of this video, Wix. And I appreciate them reaching out and supporting the channel. And you don't want to... There are some ways that make it easier and some ways that make it harder in my experience. So the thing you want to avoid usually, and what a lot of people fall into, is when you have this sort of vague idea about what you want your story to be. Maybe you have a few characters, you have a couple of scenes that are connected, that you know you want to be in there, and you just really want to start. So you sort of just start pouring ideas out, and you don't really cut any of them back or anything like that, and you don't really know where your story is going to go. You just hope to sort of cobble it together as you can go on. Now, while you can do that, in my experience, that ends up with a comic that you will not want to finish, because when you get to those certain scenes that you really wanted to get to, it might not even make sense because you didn't figure out how they're going to be connected. And then, most importantly, if you don't know where the story is going to end, it can be really hard to keep going because you're trying to figure out how to write the ending while you're working on the middle, and it makes it really difficult. It also, especially in case of like a narrative story, a narrative comic, you could end up in a situation where you're creating mysteries you don't know the answer to, and then inevitably when you have to answer the questions that you brought up, they might end up being kind of silly or not very satisfying for the reader. So what I recommend is finding your story's skeleton. Your story's skeleton is the best of both worlds. You don't have to write out a complete script with all of the details already decided, which is something that a lot of people don't want to do, and even if you do it, a lot of the times you're going to feel frustrated because you've taken all the fun out of actually making the comic, After that point, it'll be just mindless execution, and there really won't be any wiggle room if you want to change anything. Whereas if you go the other direction and you don't plan anything, like I said, there's all kinds of problems that erupt out of that. But if you find the story skeleton, you can find the core of what your story is supposed to be. That'll keep you on track and making sense through the whole story while still giving you a little flexibility to change it around if things aren't working or if you have some inspiration mid-development. So here's how Pixar's story skeleton goes. Once upon a time is the beginning, just wherever you want to start your story. The and everyday section is telling you what the daily life of the character is like and where they're at right now at the beginning. Then, of course, until one day, that's the point at which you have to fill in what the catalyst of the story situation is going to be. The three because of that's are basically just you filling out the meat of the events of the story that will happen before the final climax. Until finally is the climax where they solve the problem somehow, or the problem overcomes them, whatever type of story it is. And since that day is just showing how things rolled out at the end. The moral theme of the story is not necessary if you don't want it to be, but having some sort of thematic backbone can also keep your story consistent. So the next step after you have your story planned out enough that you can actually start the thing is motivation. A lot of people ask me about this, and motivation is a tough thing because it has to come from within yourself. However, there are a few ways to keep motivation up and to prevent sort of the slow despair of running out of motivation. So here are the tips I would give you. First of all, you want to keep the snowball rolling. Motivation becomes a bigger problem, for at least for me, when I have missed a few updates. That's when I have the hardest time picking up the pen to start doing an update of Unfamiliar because I feel like a failure and I feel frustrated and sad. And whatever the reason is that I missed updates, it makes me want to avoid the project altogether. So what I recommend in order to keep yourself motivated is to do whatever you can to make sure that you keep to your update schedule. It'll make you feel proud when you think about it, your consistency, and that will help you stay motivated. Also, it just seems easier when there's less gaps between your pages. If you're doing pages a lot, it doesn't seem so difficult. Whereas if it's been a while, it's gonna seem like a bigger feat than it actually is. The stress of it just makes it feel like a bigger task. The other thing you can do is just make sure that you're not pushing yourself too hard. If you have like school and another job or something like that, don't expect yourself to be making a page every day. It's just not realistic. Secondly, if you have a style that's really, really detailed and delicate, you have to give yourself more time. I intentionally picked a style that's relatively simplistic when I started making my comic because I wanted my updates to be frequent. Lastly, make sure there's accountability. Put it up online and make sure that your update schedule is clear to your viewers, whoever they might be. Even if there's only a friend or two looking at your comic, it will still make you feel more motivated to get it done on the update schedule if you know that people are waiting for you. It's something that helped me out a lot for sure. So the last thing you need to do before you really start is to design your characters and make sure that they look exactly the way you want them to before you get started. On the other hand, don't beat yourself up too much if they're starting to look a little different. You don't want to fight progress, and you are going to get better at drawing really quickly if you're drawing so much for your comic. So don't freak out too much. As you can see, Planchette looked really different in page 1 than she did in the more recent pages, because my art style has been evolving and I've been making little changes to her, so it's not too big of a deal. So now I'm going to go through step by step and show you exactly everything I do to make my comic, and these are steps that you can do whether you're a traditional artist or a digital artist. Now the first thing a lot of people ask me is what size do I make my pages? So my pages are 7 inches by 10.5 inches, and that was just something that I looked up to see basically what good sizes are if you want to do printing like for books in the future. So the first step that I take on the actual execution process once I've gotten my empty file is I want to make thumbnails. Now what a thumbnail is just a super tiny version of the page. And this is not a sketch because you're making it so tiny small. It's basically just like the quickest possible sketch that you make at a really small size because you want to be drawing in such a way that you don't worry about erasing. When you do nice sketches, it can feel very painful to erase pieces of them, but at this point you're just plotting out where the word bubbles and where the characters are going to be, and you want to be able to erase a lot. This is the main way that I figure out the flow of the page, and this is a really crucial part. This actually takes a really long time. It's surprising, but even though the thumbnails really look crappy and like they're not very fancy art, this is where the meat of the comic's look is actually decided. Now, after the thumbnails are done, I blow up the thumbnail to a very large size. I make sure it's within my guide, which is basically like a 1/2 inch all around, I think. And that just makes sure that there's like a bleed area where if I do ever get it printed, where the bubbles aren't too close to the edge. Basically, I don't let any of the bubbles get in to the guide. So the way to make sure that your bubbles aren't crowding your characters and your words aren't crowding your bubbles is to start with the text. While it's still a messy sketch, you want to type in all the text.
This is Joy, coming to you live in Riley's mind. Make some noise! Sadness is in the house!
So once you've typed in all your text, then you know how big of a bubble you're going to need. Now you draw out those bubbles, and then you can see if there's any places where your art's getting crowded. Now after this is the laborious inking stage. A lot of artists would have an additional sketch stage after this. Usually you wouldn't ink on top of a thumbnail. This is kind of a weird quirk of mine and I don't necessarily recommend it. It's just the way that I do things. It makes it so that I have to figure out a lot of details on the fly, and I personally like that, but for a lot of people that's a lot of stress in the inking stage that you don't really need. So this part takes the longest by far. And I would also like to mention that this whole comic page, it's just one comic page and my art style is relatively simple, but this took me 4.5 hours to make, and this is literally all I worked on during that time. So like I said, comics are a slow business. So all the while I'm inking, I'm making sure that everything is still looking right, because you definitely want to catch any final mistakes in this part before you put any color in. Once you've added in the color, changing something is infuriating. If you're not doing color, then you'll be doing grayscale at this point. So this is the coloring stage, and my number one tip for coloring your comic is to make sure to limit your colors. Comics are very bloaty when it comes to colors. You'll often find yourself wanting to find more and more colors, and then after a while you look back at your page and you're like, this is a mess. Like, there's just too much going on. When I first started Unfamiliar, I only allowed myself to use 7 colors, and it has since expanded wildly. I used to only have really different shades of blue and orange, and now it's all kinds of crazy colors, and I'm suffering because of that. I wish I'd kept it restricted because it actually makes things a lot easier, and weirdly enough, if you get used to that color palette as you're reading it, it doesn't look weird at all. Even though I have like some bluish trees and stuff like that, because I didn't really have greens in my color palette, it ends up looking really unified and beautiful. So learn from my mistakes, kids. Keep it restricted if you can, because it makes it so much easier in the future. After the flat colors are in, I am shading and doing some basic like light effects, I would say, like just trying to give some atmosphere to the whole thing and doing gradients and stuff like that. This is very digital, so if you're doing your comics traditionally, you might skip this stage altogether and have done the shading sort of during the coloring area. And with that, we're done. So that's exactly how I make my comic. Obviously, only take the advice that you think would be helpful, and I hope you guys have good luck on your future projects and endeavors. Feel free to tell me about your comic in the comments below if you have one, or if you have any questions you'd like me to answer in a future Do This Not That, please let me know. Another big thanks to Wix for sponsoring the video. Check the link in the description if you want to try Wix for yourself. Thank you so much for staying till the end, and I will see you guys later. Big thank you to all of my patrons, including Gaia, Scott Peterson, Chris.
Here at Papa John's, we know our stuff.
So try our garlic epic stuffed crust pizza, made with our iconic garlic sauce flavor, mixed with cheese and ham.
Hello everybody, and welcome to another publishing video here on the channel, where we're going to be getting into the financial breakdowns for my first 2 self-published books, Breach of Peace and Rebel's Creed. I do want to start this off by apologizing for not getting this video to you a little bit sooner. I was originally planning on getting this out in 2022, but due to a mixture of anxiety and just being incredibly busy, this video kind of just kept getting delayed and delayed to the point where it just kind of faded into the constant tension I feel as someone who suffers from severe anxiety. And I just forgot about it until I came across a Reddit post on the subreddit here for the channel where someone was asking when, if it was going to get done, and someone even responded, maybe speculating that possibly my books just did so poorly that I didn't want to showcase. It's kind of actually the opposite of that. When I started the journey to try and put out these books, I thought, in my just naive estimate, I would sell roughly as many copies as I had patrons. It made sense to me that, okay, if 1,500-ish people, which was about how many patrons I had at the time, like the channel enough to support me by going the extra mile there, I'll probably sell maybe a few hundred more copies than that. That was really stupid to think. And then the organic growth for the book also exceeded my expectations, it getting several reviews here on YouTube from people who had mixed responses, which I have appreciated the critical feedback and the positive. It's been great, and I've taken a lot of that to learn to do better for my next book, Neon Ghosts. Publication date coming soon. And then it even started to take off in places like Bookstagram and TikTok. I even got a couple websites reviewing the books. And as the dollar amounts kept rising and rising, I was really afraid if I made this video, it was going to come across like I was just bragging about how good my books did. I don't ever want to be one of those YouTubers who is like flexing his cash on people. I find that to be tacky and disgusting. But I also am a very big believer in financial transparency in pretty much every industry in existence. It allows people at all levels to better understand their own value, and in addition to that, the insights you get from looking at how much money I made where from my books also helps highlight just how bad the Amazon Titan grip on the self-publishing industry really is. And so for those reasons, I decided to finally get this done. But if my tone seems a bit different, it's because I am still very, very nervous doing this. But if I'm going to do something that could be taken as kind of douchey, let's go ahead and look the part. Black t-shirt, check. The chain, check. Unnecessarily large secondary ring, check. And now, I need unnecessary YouTube flair to grab your attention and make you think that I'm quirky and special. I haven't put contacts in since I got my LASIK, so let's see how this goes. Wash my hands first. Do I seem quirky yet relatable? But in all seriousness though, I do also need to say before we get into the units and then the actual cash, thank you everyone who has supported my authorial career. It is actually a dream come true for me. I grew up reading Tolkien, Pullman, Jordan, Le Guin, and now having a book that has sold well enough to be ranked on Amazon even at all was enough to make me cry when it happened. I am going to be hustling to constantly be improving. I'm incredibly proud of my first two books, but I already know how much better I can do, and I can't wait to prove that to you in my next book. You all are why I'm able to do this, and I genuinely feel so much love. Tangentially coming off of that, if you are someone who wants to self-publish a book, please, obviously, I don't know why I feel the need to clarify this, but just in case someone out there doesn't get it, do not compare your initial sales numbers to mine. I am coming from a place of extraordinary privilege within the self-publishing space, having this platform to promote myself on, and no one should feel bad for not matching my numbers. The exact opposite. That is normal, that is fine. I have an advantage that is just straight up unfair over other indie authors. That's why I like to help promote them here on the channel whenever I get the chance. I can't read. Oh my god. But before we jump into the units and money, a quick word from today's sponsor. Because this video is brought to you by Hello, and choose your paperback versions of my book through a company called Ingram Spark. I do not like them. I think they are very rough when it comes to not only your ability to put your book together on their site as an author, but their lack of tools available behind the scenes, which is a video for a whole other day, is severely disappointing. And even their latest upgrade for their new reports I find to be substantially worse than their old reports, which were already bad. But video for another day, I'm sorry. When it comes to exactly how many books I sold physical copies of between 2021 and 2022, the total comes to, I really can't read right now, 29,742 books. So yeah, my initial estimate of total across all mediums of it being available of only selling a couple thousand was blown out of the f***ing water. Thank you again so much. Now, when it comes to ebooks, I want you to specifically listen to these numbers. Unfortunately, I can't give you every specific vendor due to a technical issue happening on my side right now, but I can give you the two biggest for me personally, which would be, of course, Kindle and Google. When it comes to my total ebooks sold through KDP, or Kindle Direct Publishing, which I have never been exclusive with as long as I've been on Kindle, I've been on Google Books, I sold 10,599 copies. Now, when comparing that to the largest competitor in terms of how many I sold, on Google, I only sold 685 copies. I think this might put in context why for other indie authors who do not have a platform to promote themselves on like me, it becomes understandable why they end up signing up for Kindle exclusive and things along those lines, because the larger percentages you get there for being exclusive absolutely smash the potential profit you could make by making your book even just available on any other competitors. This is why it's a problem. And then for Audible, which I was exclusive on for both periods we're looking at, 2021 and 2022, I no longer am. My books are actually up for free here on my YouTube channel. Go ahead and check them out if you'd like to. I sold 11,169 copies, which I think is skewed a little bit higher than some people who self-publish typically get in terms of percentages between the mediums, and that is likely due to the fact that I spent extra money up front to get two of my favorite narrators of all time, Michael Kramer and Kate Redding, which I'll use as an excuse to talk about the fact that yes, hiring audiobook narrators, art, cover design, editors, total for the first two books came to a total of roughly $10,000 for me. I wasn't able to find every single invoice, but I think that was the budget I had. Importantly of note, my next book, Neon Ghosts, will exclusively be on Audible and Kindle, which absolutely sucks and is part of the reason why I pulled my first two books from being exclusively there. It is due to the fact that my next book is not being self-published, it is being trad published, and before this issue was brought to light, I had already signed the contract. I have tried to change it, I have asked people, but I would essentially be screwing over small companies who, again, must have that larger split and higher percentage from Amazon for their business model to make sense, and I feel bad trying to twist their arm getting to change it. If it were up to me, yes, I would, but I cannot ask people trying to run small businesses to do something that would financially impact them on that level. I really hope you understand, and just know that there will be a physical copy also available that will not benefit anybody except for those smaller businesses and myself. But that brings us to the money. For the total in print sales, that 29,742 books resulted in a total payday of $122,964. Far more money than I ever imagined I would make for my publishing career, let alone just from my first two books in the first 2 years. Once you add in the Kindle Direct Publishing, which came to a total of $31,599, the Google Publishing, which came to $2,230, and the audiobook, which came to a total of $21,790, I received a payment of $178,583.77. Now, my ebook was available on a few other vendors aside from Kindle and Google, which again, I'm unable to get the analytics there right now due to a technical difficulty because they're through one vendor. Anyway, I just added in an additional $2,000 because it was not much I have ever received from any of those platforms, and I think I'm actually being a little bit generous for myself there. It might be a few hundred under that, but that brings the total to $180,583.77. Most of that money went for a very generous down payment on my house. I've always wanted to live in a townhome, and that is where a bulk of it went. I genuinely couldn't keep the rings on that much longer. I thought I might be a ring guy for a while, but I just don't think it's for me. So at the end of the day, I am over the moon with how my books have done as a whole, and the gratitude I feel towards my audience and the feedback I have gotten, both critical and praising, has been invaluable to me. Pulling my first two books from being exclusively from Audible means I shouldn't expect to see that Audible number rise much more, but I would just personally prefer you go to my YouTube channel where they're up for free with simply, I think, very minimal ad breaks and enjoy Michael Kramer and Kate Redding's performances that I'm so happy to have for my books.
The worst part was its skin. At first, Clyd thought the thing was wearing a baggy robe. As her eyes focused, it became clear those folds were flesh. A line of spit dribbled from those exposed teeth, and as the demon realized it had been spotted, it emitted a guttural hiss.
Unfortunately, they just weren't the right fit for my next book, so it's going to be a different narrator, but I am equally thrilled with them. But let me know what you think of me doing this, the results, the insights you're able to pull from, especially in the industry level, in the comments down below. Of course, if you're interested in picking up my books, I always have links down there as well. And thank you, Campfire, for sponsoring today's video. Really, I cannot recommend that software enough if you're someone like me who has just a scatterbrain approach to writing a book. Or if you like incessantly taking notes. They kind of are adjusted to help both groups. Like and subscribe if you have not already. Hit the Patreon. I'm not really sure what else I'm supposed to say in this video, so I'm going to go ahead and just say like and subscribe if you have not already. Hit the Patreon if you like to support what I do here. And have a good one, y'all. Peace.
We all know life's... For an effective clean that's gentle on skin, all you need is All Free Clear.
When you have auto glass damage, trust SafeLight. And one easy appointment, we can replace your windshield and recalibrate your advanced safety system. Great, thanks. Stay safe with SafeLight. Schedule now.
SafeLight replace.
I had moderately high hopes when I heard that there was a flirty sword fight in the 2012 film Mirror Mirror, and I saw some abbreviated clips on the interwebs and I thought to myself, you know what, that doesn't look too bad. I should have moderated my expectations, honestly. If we haven't met, I'm Jill Barab. I'm an actor combatant and accidental Barnes & Noble best-selling author. This video is sponsored by the book, which I wrote. More on that anon. And while I have a terrible weakness for flirty sword fights in film, apparently I also have exacting standards. This doesn't work for me, but I am going to explain why. For those of you unfamiliar, the plot of Mirror Mirror goeth thusly. It's Snow White. It's just Snow White, but they gave it the Shrek treatment. Fine. The evil queen, played by Julia Roberts, marries King Sean Bean, and he goes into the forest, and there's a monster, and he disappears. Julia Roberts has been queen ever since, and Snow White, the king's daughter, has been confined to the palace. One day, when she turns 18, Snow White finds her courage and leaves the palace. She also finds a half-dressed prince from another kingdom. It is alleged that he might be charming, but more importantly discovers that her people are suffering, and so she decides to ask the prince for help at a ball that she sneaks into. But it doesn't go well. She is taken into the woods to be killed, as per the original fairy tale, but she meets the dwarves, I'm not entirely sure, and via a brief training montage, they turn her into a sword-wielding badass. Sure. The prince comes into the forest to look for the bandits and finds her. They have a fight. It's a thing. Eventually, the evil queen puts a spell on the prince so that he will fall in love with her and marry her. Snow White kidnaps him and breaks the spell via true love's kiss, which is not at all weird. No, it's not weird. Anyway, they fight the monster in the woods, and then Snow White goes, oh my goodness, let's just destroy that magical talisman around its neck, and oh, it's dad. The queen dies due to magical backlash, I guess. Snow White and the prince get married, and everyone lives happily ever after. Except Julia Roberts. Before anyone decides to come to the comment section to tell me things about Armie Hammer, please be advised that that is not relevant to this movie fight analysis. We are talking about the movie and the characters and what they